Hello, Katherina. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you. It's so nice to see you. If you could please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you, what you do, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Rayani, for having me here. Well, my name is Katherina Swings. I'm Belgian, maybe also relevant for your audience. And I'm a mom of 2 teenagers. I love the outdoor, but of course, people need to make a living as well. And so I have set up my own company after a corporate HR career, mainly at a big international brewer, where I really lived the whole evolution or the transformation from a local Belgian brewer to the biggest brewer in the world, like they love to call themselves. So it was very exciting times where I worked in a very international environment, also having line managers from your home country, Brazil. In 2015, I set up my own company, and initially it was typical HR freelance jobs, I would say, HR interim, HR projects also internationally, and some interesting change management projects, one in the Netherlands and one from Leverkusen in Germany. And the last couple of years, I'm focusing on the huge problem or challenge, I would prefer to call it, we have, that there are so many open vacancies on the one hand, but on the other hand, also so many people that cannot find a job or not a job at their educational level or linked to what their desire or expectations is. In Belgium, the work activity is only 74%, whereas by 2030, the government decided it should be 80%. In Europe, that's already the case in Germany and Sweden, also the Netherlands, I believe. But so we have some work to do to catch up and to make sure that there is a better matching between the available people on the job market on the one hand and the vacancies, the job opportunities that stay open for way too long. And I accompany my clients in that process from employer branding to onboarding. So I'm not a recruiter, but I help them to get their message out, to know what makes them different, relevant, and also interesting for the target audience to apply for a role over there. So it's also linked to candidate experience, candidate journey, but also metrics. And what is very important to have a successful talent attraction strategy, you need to take care of the diversity that is a reality in society. So you need to be inclusive in your communication and your way of behaving, thinking, acting. It should be anchored as a no-brainer in everything that you do.
That's great. Thank you so much. And actually, talking about this topic that we talk so much nowadays about diversity and inclusion.
Yes.
If you could please explain what is the main difference between these two terms?
So it's a very good question, because indeed it's very confusing, and yeah, it is used or understood in different ways, whereas actually once you realize the difference, it is so clear. So I'm sure that you love to eat, so I decided to take an example from the kitchen. So if you want to prepare us a delicious Brazilian meal, for example, Rayani, you would buy ingredients. And the ingredients, that is actually the diversity. But with the ingredients on the counter, I can still not taste your delicious meal because it is just lying there. And the diversity in society is a spectrum. It can be anything. Some things are really something you don't choose because it's part of your identity, or just things that happen to you. Like, for example, a speech impediment. It's just, yeah, you didn't choose to have that, but it makes you diverse, let's say, or your background, socioeconomical background, ethnical diversity, religion, LGBTQI plus, if you belong to in that spectrum. So these are all really identity related diverse factors, let's say, and of course the typical gender, age, and differently abled people. On the other hand, there is also diversity or elements that employers can take into account is, for example, based on your contract. You can have a permanent contract, or you can be a contractor, a consultant, an interim, or based on an interim labor agreement. That's also a certain way of diversity. But also working part-time or full-time, the people working in the office and the people in the warehouse or the factory, or the people working remotely or people working in the office. So, you know, that it's a very diverse spectrum. But if you just have them lying there on the counter or just sitting all of them in the office, to translate it to a work environment, it's not going to work. It's just a state of being, but there is nothing happening. And just like you will need to pour all the ingredients together and cook it or fry it or whatever magic you do, you will need to do the same with diversity and that is then the inclusion part. It's an active process where you take a decision to include everybody that is sitting there in your, or that is part of your team, for example, to understand what are their needs, how can we help them, support them to create a sense of belonging. For example, people with a speech impediment, I can imagine that there is always a bit of hurdle to talk in a meeting. So if people would know, for her it's more, for you it might be more difficult, that we are patient, that we invite you specifically, what's your opinion, Rayani? What do you think about it? That we make it more easy for you to that you can take the time and come out. So that's already an inclusive measure, just taking care of each other in the end and making sure that everybody can contribute and be happy while working together. Because of course in a company it's also you need to perform and you need to get results together, but just taking care that everybody has can do his or her part without feeling, maybe I shouldn't say that, or maybe I can't talk about it because people will think I'm weird, or they will not understand, or they will laugh at me. If all those examples that I just mentioned are there, then there is diversity, but there is no inclusion, because in an inclusive environment, everybody will speak up if they feel like this is something I have to say. And it can also be about your private life. For example, on a Monday morning, people ask, how has your weekend been? And for example, if I would be a lesbian, I would be able to say then, yeah, with my girlfriend, we went to the park, we had a meal together. And I'm not thinking, oh, no, I cannot say I'm lesbian because they will think that that's not acceptable here. So I will try to find a way to just, yeah, with my partner, we did. So you have already these hurdles in your mind and those obstacles, and you are not your true self at that point in time. So that is non-inclusive. The moment you can speak up without really thinking about judgment, then it means that there is a welcoming environment for everybody, regardless of your taste or your walk of life or whatever diversity element that is relevant for you.
That's so interesting. You know that this is actually the first time that I actually hear someone really going to the difference between diversity and inclusion. So it's so interesting to actually hear it. And I was also thinking, because sometimes people who like stutter, maybe people even want to listen to what we have to say in a meeting, but we feel that we are disturbing them because we take too long to say something. So like sometimes I feel the inclusion also begins with us, the people who have some kind of challenge or like struggle, because we sometimes don't say, we don't like speak up because we feel that we bother people with our like speech impediment or something like that. So I think it's also like important that we also try to be inclusive with ourselves as well.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you say that, because I think that happens so much, not only for people with a speech impediment, but just in general. Just, yeah, I will shut up because I'm the only woman in the room, so they will think, there she is again, or whatever. So I think indeed we do that all the time, and it's the assumptions, and assumptions is a big topic in diversity and inclusion. We do that about others, but like you rightly say, we do that also about ourselves, and we create obstacles that might not even be there, because if people like you as a colleague, and yeah, they know you as a Rayani, they don't know you as the stutterer or something, you know, it's just a small part of who you are. So and you have something valuable to contribute, so I'm sure that people will listen. And for, like I said in our previous conversation, if you wouldn't have said that you have this speech impediment, I wouldn't even notice, because you're fluent, you know. I'm looking for my words as well from time to time, so you could think that I have a speech impediment as well. So yeah, don't be too harsh on yourself, I would say, and just go for it if you have a contribution to make. If it is people with a speech impediment, or your gender, or your ethnical background, or religion, or the way you look, just go for it, and don't punish yourself up front already by excluding yourself based on assumptions. It's a good point that you make here.
As an HR expert and also inclusion expert, how do you see employers embracing diversity and inclusion in the workplace?
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, it's a hot topic. Well, traditionally, I would say diversity and inclusion, it started all with gender, and more women on the work floor, more women in boardrooms, more women in higher management, and so on. And that is all already going on for a few decades, I have to say, since the 60s, I believe, the women's rights and feminism and all of that. So that is definitely the first aspect that found its way through companies, let's say. But then, of course, now that we are society is changing so much, and there are so many open vacancies, and it's so difficult for employers to fill those vacancies. The scope gets broader and broader, and ethnical diversity, for example, is more and more important. It's also obvious in the numbers. And when you see the statistics, it's clear that you will need to recruit a more diverse workforce. And knowing that 1 child out of 3 in Belgium has a parent or a grandparent from outside the EU, yeah, then you know that it is happening. You know, it's just a reality that we need to embrace for the benefit of the whole society. So more and more companies are realizing that, but it is a whole shift from, okay, diversity is the first step, let's say, that they understand we need more women, we need more ethnical diversity, for example, but the process is really going slow. Even for women in equal pay, there is still a gap. So the process is going slow, and the focus is often still on the diversity and not on the inclusion. So the ingredients are lying on the kitchen counter, but the active process of bringing it all together and making the mix work, there is still a lot of learning curve needed for most of the companies. I'm not saying that there are no exceptions. There is also different trends internationally, like in the US, you have a huge focus, for example, on Black Lives Matter, and then also some waves or some ideas are coming to Europe. Also, legislation in the US is very strict on recruitment and so on, which is less regulated, I would say, in Europe. So companies that have a US base have another mindset. It's sometimes stricter or more focused upon diversity, often still diversity and not necessarily inclusion, but it is also a first step, because the moment you have like 30% of a minority in a team, from that moment on, it is a relevant mass, let's say. That from that moment on, if you have, for example, in a boardroom, there is legislation in Belgium that you need women and in a boardroom, like 30% or more. So if you have 3 women in a boardroom and 7 men, from that moment on, they matter. They have a voice. People will listen to them. But if you're only 1 woman in a boardroom and 9 men, then it will be much more difficult for that person to have her voice heard, to voice her opinion, and that is scientifically proven. So it's not an assumption there. So it's pretty similar for any other focus group or minority, because women are not even a minority in society, but in that setting they are. So you need some mass, you need some numbers before you can make this diversity work, because otherwise there is still this power imbalance. Okay, you are 2 or 3 in a group of 20, but to make a change, to make a mindset shift, you need a bit more people, so that the majority can learn also from that. It's not always bad intentions, it's also a lot of ignorance, like, okay, should we do that? Okay, is that problem for them? Like an example would be for in Belgium, there's a lot of alcohol use. I'm not talking about abuse, that's there as well, but just how normal it is to have alcohol on the work floor during, like you go with a customer and it would be okay to offer a drink, for example, or after work, let's have a reception, or let's have a celebration, or with New Year, you have a bottle of champagne or good wine as a gift in a goodie bag for everybody. But for a lot of people in our society, that's not even a gift, because they don't drink alcohol. And that can be religiously, but it can also, pregnant women don't usually drink neither. But that connection is often not made, because that's the way we do things here. And if you don't drink alcohol in a reception, and you're a woman, they would ask, well, are you pregnant? No, I'm not pregnant. I'm just not drinking alcohol. You know, so it is. It is also these things. When the more people that don't drink alcohol, based on regardless the reason why, the more obvious it will be. Like, yeah, we shouldn't do that, because half of our team will not see this as a gift, because they don't even know what to do with it, because at home nobody drinks neither, for example. So the numbers do count. So that makes it so important that it is an evolution, and that people speak up also, and that there is that we create an environment where the people that receive then this bottle of champagne feel okay to tell to the line manager or to whomever is giving them the gift, like, sorry, but I don't want this gift, because it's not a gift to me. I give me something else, or I return it, or whatever the solution that can be discussed then.
And you launched the 44 tips to boost your vacancies with key guidance for a successful and inclusive hiring process. Mm-hmm. What are companies looking for when we're talking about recruiting people, candidates from the diversity and the inclusion category? And what would be the best approach to be successful at the job interview for candidates who have a speech impediment, you think?
Yes, okay, that's two questions all linked together. Well, first of all, employers are looking for skills, for competences, for motivation, for eagerness. You know, they're not looking for diversity. You know, it's just, yeah, it's happening because if they are looking for all these competences and talents and skills, of course, the candidates that will show up are diverse. But as an employer, I'm usually, in general, not actively looking for diversity, unless, of course, now part of corporate social responsibility and showing that we are a good, sustainable employer, that might be a way to find those skills and to show and to do also some branding and to say like, look, we are a mirror of society. But the core of what they are looking, and if you really scratch to the core of their search, it's competencies, it's skills, it's motivation, right? So the diversity comes with it automatically because that is the world we are living in, and diversity will also increase because there's more and more information that we know, and there is still a lot of people that are fleeing their countries, and also with climate change there will be more and more even mass movements of people in different regions. But the diversity will also increase because we just know more. Like, for example, neurodiversity, people with who are on the autism spectrum, dyslexic people, ADHD, ADD, you know, all these elements. Science is progressing and is getting, or highly sensitive people. It's also introverts, extroverts, all these characteristics of people that was not known so much. I mean, when I'm born in the 70s, when I was in primary school, none of my colleagues at school or the other pupils had ADHD or dyslexic, or we didn't even know that it really existed. Whereas now my teenage kids, they each year they have a child in their class that gets accommodations because they have a certain additional care. So science is progressing. So, and as a result, the diversity as a result of that is increasing as well. So it will increase, but in the end, we still will need the employer will still be looking for people who are able to do the job. And the diversity will come with it automatically. That's not even a choice. They cannot say we don't want it, because automatically there will be a diversity because it is already there. And then they will need to have inclusive measures to make sure that people come and stay also, because you can attract a diverse workforce, but if you don't include them, if you don't create that sense of belonging, people will leave, and people have a choice. So that is that an answer to the first part of your question? The second part is you specifically for people with a speech impediment. So you're asking what they could do to have a successful job interview. That was your question, right? Yeah. Yes. I've been thinking about it because you said it, you gave me the question before. And I think the most important thing, regardless if you have a speech impediment or not, is just be yourself. You are authentic, you are unique, you have skills, you have motivation, you are eager to learn, you have all the credentials and qualifications that are on your CV, just like any other possible hire. So focus on who you are and what you bring to the table. But I can understand that if you have a speech impediment and the first step in the process is a job interview or a virtual conversation like we are having now, that your stress level will be higher than somebody without a speech impediment. So I would be open about it. I'm not sure if I would really put it already in my CV, because you might not come to the interview then, because people are really very quick in assuming certain things. The moment that you're invited for an interview, and usually you have a mail address, that you mention it then, like, look, you've seen my CV, I'm really happy that you invite me for an interview, but please, I want to tell you up front that this is my speech impediment. You can briefly, but I would describe it, what it means, so that people understand, because otherwise they will make it up and then it might be much worse than what the reality is. And you can just say, like when I'm under stress, I will sometimes repeat a few words, or it will be more difficult for me to find my way through the sentences, but please don't let that disturb you, because I've passed my oral exams. Or you can mention a situation that is similar to the stress level of a job interview where you have been successful, just to also educate the recruiters, because people who do not have a speech impediment, they will not think about that possibility. It's only when they come across in a meeting, then they will say, wow, that person is really stressed, she cannot find her words. They might not even think it's a speech impediment, they might think it's stress or uncertainty or whatever. And so then I think it's better that they just know, and that you explain briefly without justifying. You not justifying, but more from an education level, like, this is my situation, and I want to let you know upfront.
Great.
And I think it might even also reduce the stress, because then when you go into the job interview, you know already that the other person knows. And I think for your mental preparation of the interview, I would hope it also relaxes you more, and you can really show your true self and all the skills that you have. And speech impediment is only like a tiny portion of what you bring to the table.
I agree. I think disclosure, it's so important to be able to say that you have a speech like impediment, and it takes away all this weight on like your shoulders. That the person will find out at some point. The person will realize that I stutter, and it's so much stress, it builds up. So I think it's better if you say, as you get there, you just mention it, and that's it.
Yeah.
And Katherina, going to our last question, what advice would you give to professionals who stutter, who are currently struggling to get hired due to their speech impediment?
Yeah, I'm not an expert, of course, in speech impediment, but yeah, I would first of all maybe partly repeat what I said before, is like stay convinced of the fact that you are much more than your speech impediment. Secondly, also don't assume that it is because of your speech impediment that you will not be able to find the job that you want. Because I can imagine that if you apply several times and each time it's negative, and maybe sometimes negative not even because of your speech impediment, but you might think, yeah, it's because I stuttered or because I couldn't find my words, that you start internalizing that storyline for you. And then, it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's not only happening with speech impediment, it's with, we could also say, yeah, it's because I'm a woman, and it's so, of course, they want a man for the job. It is that speech that you hear a lot of time, and that is actually the most dangerous speech you can talk to yourself, because if you can dream it, you can have it. That's, I really believe in that positive thinking, and if you visualize and if you are convinced, like, I'm able to do the job, they just need to find me, but I'm a treasure that needs to be found, I have skills, I want to do this job, then at some point somebody will discover and say like, wow, you're really the person we are looking for. But I think if you internalize it and you become fearful and you know, you always repeat this, it's like a mantra, you really start believing that nobody wants you because you're you have a speech impediment, or because you have the wrong gender or whatever. It is not bringing you anything. So staying positive and being convinced about your qualifications, your experience, I mean, everybody has talents, and just focus on that and make sure that you start a positive narrative into your mind. And then if you reach out to employers, a lot of employers have statements about diversity and inclusion on their website, and that is also part of it. So if it's just window dressing, then yeah, you might run into you might not succeed. But if they are really serious about diversity and inclusion, then pick out those companies where you have a sense that that topic is at play, and then you can also open the conversation. And if you still get a negative, like you're not taken for the job, and often it's like one sentence, just call is maybe then also a stressful moment. But maybe if you feel like calling, of course you should, but having a speech impediment, that might be also some extra stress. But reach out to them on mail, and if that is more comfortable, let's say, and ask like, yeah, really, I would like to learn from every job interview that I take, and can you explain me a bit more? And companies that are working on employer branding, they know that they should reply to that message in a correct way, because even if you are rejected as a candidate, but you are rejected with respect, you will still tell other people like, look, I didn't get the job, but you know, they really gave me a feedback that is valuable to me, and that is also part of employer branding. So the good companies, let's say, who are working on diversity and inclusion and on employer branding, these are the companies that where you should have a positive result, or a big chance that if you have the right qualifications that they are looking for. But that's of course an assumption that I make, that if you apply for a role, that you see yourself in that role. Just keep on trying. And it's not, you know, so there are also other people like I'm 48. If I look for another job, I will have to apply 100 times as well, because I'm too old, although I feel really young and dynamic, and I don't feel resistant to change. But these are the assumptions that my age group is dealing with. So I will need to convince myself, yeah, Katherina, you can do this, and you can add value. And so you see that it's so important to keep your internal narrative positive, and to keep on believing in yourself. And there is a huge need of talent. So so you will be discovered one day, because companies need you.
I think it's very important what you said, to try to take the focus away from your speech impediment, and focus on actually what can I bring to this company, what can I do, how can I show them my strengths, and convince them that I am the right person for this job position. So it's very important.
A lot of people in society, people are labeled, you know, and then they make assumptions, and it is just so important for all of us to stay positive and to believe in our skills, and that the right people, the right company will see our value, and will see the sunshine that we bring, you know, and that will also the place where we will fit in best, because that's where they bring our value visible, and then we feel recognized, we feel included, the sense of belonging is there, and we will be the best version of ourselves, and people will not even think about it anymore that you have a speech impediment, for example, or that you have an age that is resistant to change.
Wow, yeah, I feel the world has a lot to change to be more inclusive, let's say. But Katherina, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. It's such a pleasure to be able to listen to you, to learn from you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me. It's a big honor for me to be your guest, and also to learn more about people with speech impediment, because that was not on my radar yet. So I will definitely think about this talent group as well when I give examples to my clients.
That's great. Thank you so much. So
take care.
take care. Bye bye, Katherina. Thank you again.
Bye. You're welcome. Bye-bye.